Hi students and welcome to topic 13, lesson 3. Today we're going to be talking about finding the area of a parallelogram, and we're going to do things a little out of order today. We're going to start with part 1, then we're going to go back to the launch, then we'll go to part 2 and move on from there. So let's begin by watching this video. First of all, actually, do you remember what a parallelogram is? A parallelogram is a shape with two parallel sides that do not form, but the shape does not have four 90-degree angles like a rectangle. That's a very poorly drawn parallelogram, but in the video you will see a much better parallelogram. Let's go ahead and watch.
Suppose you have a parallelogram with base B and height h. To decompose the parallelogram into a rectangle, cut the parallelogram along its height. Move the triangle to the other side. Then push the pieces together to form a rectangle. So you can decompose a parallelogram to form a rectangle with the same base and height as the parallelogram.
All right. So the reason we started with that was because I wanted you to very clearly see that a couple things. First of all, when you have a parallelogram, the base is always the side that is the flat side that's touching the bottom of the page. So one of the lengths or one of the long sides. But your height, you have to be very careful with your height when you're talking about parallelograms. Your height, the line or the measurement for your height must form a 90-degree angle with the base. So we can't use this line as our height because this is not a 90-degree angle. We need there to be a 90-degree angle between the height, or with the height and the base. And so with that being known, we can only use this dotted line as our height because it's the only line that has a 90-degree angle with the base. And that height is going to be the same right where it originally was drawn and where I'm drawing it right now. This height is going to be the same no matter where you slide it, but you cannot use this diagonal piece. All right, so let's go back actually for a moment and jump back to the launch. And this launch is talking about a little bit about what we did in the previous lesson, where we were talking about the garden and the miniature tree farm that the school is going to be restoring. So in this launch, go ahead and pull this out in your student companion book. First, the 6th grade was going to make this section, but now the 7th grade students are going to add an art center. And we're asked to find the area of the art center. So knowing what you just barely learned about parallelograms in the previous video, see if you can take that information to find the area of this art center. All right, let's go ahead and think about this for a moment. Well, remember that the base of the parallelogram is either the top or the bottom of the shape. And this base is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So we're going to say it's 4. And remember, this is actually 4 times 10. So this is a 40 actually. And then our height is always going to be the 90-degree angle that's right here. So we cannot use that diagonal piece. So that's our height. If I were to cut this piece along the height, I'd be able to move the triangle right here and it would make a perfect rectangle. And I know I didn't draw that perfectly, but can you picture it? Can you picture this red and yellow piece sliding over to here? If you can, you would see this is a perfect rectangle. And so then I can say, well, the height is 1, 2, 3 units because of my 3 squares, 1, 2, 3 squares, which in this situation represents 30 feet because each square represents 10 feet. So I would do 40 times 30 and I would get 1,200 again. That should sound familiar from the previous problem. 1,200. Let's go ahead and take a peek at the solution. All right, so here is one way that you can do this. they actually broke this into, they found the area of the triangle and broke it apart a little bit differently. But we used the information we just learned about parallelograms being able to kind of be cut and formed into rectangles. So here we are back in the second part of part one. That's confusing. And we're going to be talking again about finding the area of a parallelogram by decomposing, by breaking apart the shape to form it into a rectangle. So here they've shown us the base is 10 and the height is 7. So we need to simply take the triangle that they've given us right here and visually slide it over right here. And now this piece, and let me maybe frame this in red, this piece in red is my new rectangle right here. I know the base is 10. I know the height is 7. So if I need to find the area of this rectangle that I just composed, I can say, well, it's 10 times 7 is going to be 70. 10 times 7 will be 70. I'd like you to go ahead and try this in your book for your Got It. All right, hopefully you're able to tackle this problem. It was a little bit more challenging because it had some fractions in there. Let's go ahead and do this together. Here's the triangle piece that we need to kind of slide over. This time we're going to slide it over here to the left, fill it in right here, and now we have a rectangle with a base of 7 1/4 and a height of 3 1/3. So we just need to multiply those. I'm going to change these into improper fractions. So I'm going to say 4 times 7 is 28 plus 1 is 29 fourths. 29 fourths. And I'm going to multiply that by this fraction, which is 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 1 is 10 thirds. 10 thirds. And I'm going to go ahead and multiply. Remember when we're multiplying fractions, we multiply the tops with the tops and the bottoms with the bottoms, and we get our new number. So 29 times 10 is 290, and 4 times 3 is 12. If you felt like it, you might have been doing some cross-canceling ahead of time, and that's totally fine. You can simplify this fraction definitely, but to save time on my video, I'm going to go ahead and just divide this in my calculator. I'm going to get 24.16 repeating. So 24.16, and that 6 was repeating. This is the repeat bar. And I'm going to pull up the answer choices so we can see the fractional answer as well. Oops, and let me clear my work. All right, so we got 29 fourths times 10 thirds, which reduced to 24 1/6 if we would have taken the time to reduce all of that. So 24 1/6. So again, we're going to talk about the area formula for a parallelogram, but keep in mind that we kind of already know it. Remember, we just needed to slide this triangle over and do base times height. Well, what other shape was base times height? It was a rectangle. A rectangle area formula is base times height. Base times height. And a parallelogram's formula, spoiler alert, is also base times height. The trick is you have to be careful about where you find your height information. So let's go ahead and review that real fast. So the base is any side of the parallelogram. I like to use the long side that's on the bottom of my page. Then the height has to be perpendicular. It has to form a 90-degree angle with the base. You cannot use the diagonal side. It has to be straight up and down with the base. And if you find the height correctly, the area is going to just simply be base times height. The area of a parallelogram is base times height. So now we're going to jump into part 2, and part 2 is just asking us which of the following shapes have an area of 16 square centimeters. So we can go ahead and think about this, and we're going to drag a green circle or green rectangle over if the area is 16 centimeters and a purple one over if it's not. Let's look at this first one. Well, this is a parallelogram. A parallelogram's area is base times height. So we have 4, 4, and 3. Will this parallelogram have an area of 16 square centimeters? Hopefully you said no, because the base is 4 and the height is 3. This is the height. It forms a 90-degree angle. So 4 times 3 is 12. So this is not going to form a parallelogram with a square centimeter or 16 square centimeters as the area. Let's look at this one. 8 and 2. Well, 8 times 2 is 16. This is the base and this is the correct height. So we're going to say yes, this will form the area of 16 square centimeters. All right, now let's look at this one. This one's drawn a little bit differently. You might have to kind of think about this if you flip it, because look at the 90-degree angle right here. The 90-degree angle is given to us with this being the base. This line is the base. And we know that because the base can be really any of the sides, but the height has to be a 90-degree angle. So this would be 4 times 4, which is 16, and that would work. All right, now this one, I don't know off the top of my head, 6 and 2 2/3. I'm going to try to do this in my mind, so I'm going to do 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8, so that would be 6 times 8/3. And I'm going to actually go ahead and cross cancel, even though I don't love cross canceling. And I'm going to do 2 times 8, which is 16. So yes, this one is area of 16 because that's just a rectangle, base times height. Well, this is a square, and we can do 4 times 4, base times height again, which is 16. What about this one? 4 times 3.5. Again, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but I know 2 times 3.5 is 7. So 2 groups of 7 would be 14, and I know that is not 16. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is not. And again, I got that by doing base times the height right here, not this other 4. Let's go ahead and check our work. Awesome, we got it. I bet that it's your turn. It is. It's your turn on the got it. So let's go ahead and complete this got it in your book. Actually, you go ahead and try it on your own, and then we'll come back and discuss it together. All right, again, this is one that they kind of drew in a funny way. That's okay, it's just kind of a funny way to draw a parallelogram. But this long side is your base right here. And we know that's our base because it's perpendicular. It forms a 90-degree angle with our height. This line doesn't form a 90-degree angle with anything, so we have to just ignore this 8.6. So we're going to do 10.2 times 6.2, and let's see, that's 10.2 times 6.2. Remember, when you're multiplying decimals, you don't need to line up your decimals, you just need to line up the farthest digit to the right over here. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to add my placeholder. 6 times 2 is 12. Put my 2 down and carry that 1. 6 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. And 6 times 1 is 6. I'm going to add all these up. I get 4, 2, 3, and 6. But I know that I have 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, so I need to jump my decimal over 2 times. So 63.24. Let's go ahead and check that. And remember, this is still going to be square yards because we're working with area. So 63.24. And I'll go ahead and clear my work off here if you'd like to read the words. And now it's time for your closing check. So complete questions 1 through 4, and then come on back for the answers. All right, hopefully you were able to complete those questions. Let's go ahead and take a peek at those answers. And then make sure you pause the video where you need to so that you can keep checking your work after the video is over. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.